I think one of the things that's the most toxic about online culture right now is the belief that someone can go from being a literal Nazi, for example, helping crowdfund a ship to block aid toward refugees in the Mediterranean, trying to attack ships aiding refugees, and then, you know, a year or two later, when they haven't even denounced their ideas, yeah, let's have them on my debate panel. Let's build up their online presence. What? Well, don't you want them to reform? You know, to be quite honest with you, I don't care if that individual scumbag reforms. You know what I care more about? Stopping their movement. And guess what? They ain't reforming. They ain't changing. Did you talk about Talia Lavin? Oh, God, no. The Briahna Joy Gray drama is just absolutely incredibly stupid. I mean, I can't. She's such a bad faith actor, man. Just a completely bad faith actor. And it's an embarrassing. Like, I liked her. Like, I always liked Briahna. I did. Even when she had takes that I disagreed with, like the Green Party cringe, which she's been doing for 4 years. She was a regular at Michael Brooks' show, and Michael was really a good influence on her. And she kind of dropped the stupid Green Party crap. I mean, we had the example of Jabari Brisport. This is one of the things that I always bring up a lot is this guy named Jabari Brisport. Let's talk about weird left infighting for a second. This is not gonna be about me. I'm not gonna try to, you know, go over all the bullshit I think happens when people try to attack me for dumbass reasons. Like, who cares? But there's this like trend of weird leftist infighting, and this is where Michael Brooks is so sorely missed, because Michael was one of those people who maintained his values, but also was able to kind of push people. I don't know if it was the force of his personality or if it was his facility in handling people, but Michael Brooks was able to really rein in people from doing dumbass infighting and idiocy. All right, we're gonna talk about the weird leftist infighting here in a second. Jabari Brisport. So one of the people that I always try to point to as a concrete example of why I think in most circumstances entryism in the Democratic Party as a leftist is far better than running as a third party. I would say 99 times out of 100. That 1 out of 100, it's not true, is important. And when they pop up, we should support them and pursue them. But 99 times out of 100 in America right now, if we're going to take power in the foreseeable future, it's going to be by taking out centrist Democrats in Democratic primaries or winning in open seats. That's it. Okay? And I always like to draw people's attention to Jabari Brisport, because when Michael Brooks was alive, Michael supported Jabari when he ran as a third-party candidate in New York. And I have to say, I was skeptical of that decision. I remember talking to Jabari, and I was like, why are you running as a Green, man? You have a great campaign. You've got a ton of volunteers. You've made a really good name for yourself. Running as a Green is silly. But Jabari did that. He ran as a Green anyway. He ran as a Green. In 2017, he ran against incumbent Lori Cumbo for the 35th 35th New York City Council District. In a rare Green Party primary, he defeated Scott Hutchinson 32 votes to 4. Green Party primary. And in turn, partially inspired Alexandria Cortez's successful congressional run. He was endorsed by Our Revolution and New York Communities for Change, as well as the New York chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. He lost the election, receiving 29% of the vote. Brisport earned more independent votes than any council candidate since 2003. Pretty damn impressive, right? 29% of the vote as a Green. Damn. Pretty impressive. Except for the part where you lost. And in 2018, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ran against an incumbent Democrat from the left, the Democratic Socialists of America, Our Revolution. They learned the lessons of that Jabari run, and they ran in the Democratic primary with AOC, and she won, beating Joseph Crowley, the number, 3 in the House. But she did it by running in a Democratic primary. So now Jabari, having tried as a Green Party candidate in New York City, a place where that's going to be the max, like, there's no better place in America to run as a Green than in New York City. And guess what? You don't win. You still don't win. Jabari decided to run for New York's 25th state Senate and the primary, endorsed by Democratic Socialists of America, not changing any positions. He crushed the Democratic primary, winning with 52.25% of the vote against sitting Assemblywoman Tremaine Wright and former Montgomery staffer Jason Salmon. Bridgeport won the November general election, becoming the first openly LGBTQ person of color ever elected to the New York legislature. So right here, you can see the difference between running a damn good third-party campaign, losing, and beating establishment candidates in the Democratic primary and becoming a state senator. But for some reason, this is a specific example, right? This doesn't mean that this is, this is always 100% right. But you can see the same person with the same views, supported by the same organization, ran in a primary in the Democratic Party and won. And now is proposing things like vacancy taxes on housing, pushing for 100% affordable housing development. It's nice to see actual socialist victories, right? And we have this kind of, I don't know what to call it, but these weird little sub-genres of leftism on Twitter or online, where people approach leftism as a personal branding project, trying to signal to the world how virtuous their opinions are and how correct they are and everything, and how they are not tainted by fighting in reality. I am not one of those people. I'm going to get tainted. I'm sorry to say. I'm going to support people, and those people are going to disappoint us. I don't give a shit. I'm going to keep pushing for good. I'm going to keep pushing for actual material change. So that brings us to Briahna Joy Gray. Briahna Joy Gray is well educated. She is well spoken. She is charismatic. And she's gone down the Jimmy Dore rabbit hole after being Bernie Sanders' national press secretary, something that you could leverage into a serious gravitas. And she went down the rabbit hole of like Jimmy Dore adjacency. Jimmy Dore should be kissing your ass. What the hell? Let's look at this. Talia is a really awesome anti-fascist activist and journalist. And she went and did an interview on Briahna Joy Gray's podcast. And it was not good, folks.
Listen, like, I don't think that I'm going to be able to convince you. I think if you want to like hold hands with a Nazi and kiss them gently on the cheek, that's fine. I just don't think that's going to work out well for you.
Do you think that what I'm arguing for is that I Briahna Joy Gray, who was sitting before you as a black woman, wants to hold hands with Nazis and kiss them in the street? I'm not trying to debate you at all here. I'm trying to explore what I think are some tensions that I too am wrestling with. And I would hope that since we're both members of this group, of these groups that certainly see no benefit in appeasing Nazis, that we can have a conversation that doesn't presume that where we're coming from is because of some natural sympathy with these groups, as opposed to genuinely trying to strategize about how to fix this problem that we very much agree on, which is that America is being increasingly radicalized in these extremist ways.
I feel like I've stated my position repeatedly, and then I don't quite know how to react to respond other than like, no, I really believe what I believe. Like, I really think like that stigmatization, that pariah, dumb, that physical confrontation that I think people think that they're too cool for anti-fascism. People think anti-fascism is lame. People think that it's gauche. It's not enough. Yes, of course, I believe that like we should have Medicare for all, that we should have social like safety net policies, that we shouldn't like leave people to be deprived, alone, like to feel like these senses of loss. The elements of vulnerability to radicalization are like very common human emotions. Is feeling lost, is feeling lonely, is feeling purposeless, and like, you know, everything we can do to mitigate those feelings in such large masses of the population, like that's great. I think there are many constructive things you can do to fight Nazism that don't involve like, you know, brass knuckling up and like just flattening the nose of a Proud Boy. But like, I think you have to be willing to brass knuckle up and flatten the nose of a Proud Boy.
Talia says, I mean, kinda. Briahna Joy Gray did not say this convo would be about deradicalization. I wouldn't have agreed to it. I asked to change the subject many times. I asked her not to publish it for saying my anger at Nazis that targeted my family is performative. This is what she's responding to.
It is frustrating because I do think that I was holding back, frankly, from saying
Michael
some things that I do believe, which is that I do think that some of the way that white people approach race, and some Black people, frankly, a lot of affluent Black people, is performative. I think that some of the anger, like there is no reason why someone like Talia should be more angry at a Nazi than me. And so the certain degree of it, to me, and maybe this isn't fair, comes off as self-righteousness. Like, you don't get to be madder at racists than me. Now, if you are more angry than I am, that has to do with your personality.
Wait, what? What? Okay. So this is where I think a lot of the debate bros online have really done damage to people's brains. Deradicalization, when it happens, is a good thing. But it's similar to convincing a hardcore Republican to become a hardcore Democrat. It's so rare as to basically not exist. There are individual instances, but just as there are individual instances of people going from hardcore Republican to hardcore Democrat, there are equal and opposite existence, random incidents of people going from hardcore Democrat to hardcore Republican. Similarly, the flow of deradicalization back from Nazism is a hell of a lot lower than other forms of opposition. Ostracization, by the way, is a great way of deradicalizing people. If somebody knows that saying openly Nazi and racist shit is going to get them fired, is going to get them to lose their position at a college or university, is going to get them to lose friends and romantic relationships, they're not going to spread Nazi messages. People respond to those kind of incentives. It's just reality. So if we want to try deradicalization, if that's your idea of how you want to spend your time, fine. But you absolutely 100% should not be questioning or opposing people that are using other methods to deter and reduce the scope of fascist organizing. And the idea that you could police other people's motivations or emotions about hate? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Like, you don't get to be madder at racists than me. Now, if you are more angry than I am, that has to do with your personality, your own cognitive makeup, and you are entitled to that anger, right? But you have to understand that that's an individual. You are an individual operating as an individual, but you can't generalize about what we should do as a community based off of your personal predilections. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Absolutely.
And so you are individually entitled.
Nobody was saying that. I've been thinking about this a lot, but how much energy liberals put into trying to conceal the effectiveness of popular anti-fascism and how that effort fed the fascists. Like after the anti-fascist mobilization in Michigan, Spencer was destroyed. After the deplatforming of Milo Yiannopoulos, he was destroyed. These anti-fascist actions, we didn't convert Milo Yiannopoulos. We didn't convert Richard Spencer. We used anti-fascist action and got people to deplatform them. And now he's bankrupt. We didn't convert Tario. We sentenced him to prison. He's currently tweeting through it by pulling the debate lord tactic of actually Nazis are a specific thing. I see, Young Spinach, I know this happens every time. If you call someone a Nazi, suddenly like the debate lords, the last refuge of a debate lord when you're talking about anti-fascism is they'll say, you called someone a Nazi and that's wrong. Nazis were a specific movement that ended in 1945. Technically, nobody currently is a Nazi. You're doing misinformation right now by calling people Nazis. That movement ended in 1945 when the Red Army liberated Berlin. Are you questioning the Allied victory in World War II? Like, that's the ultimate debate lord move. The best deradicalization is systemic political change that enriches people's lives and removes them from the desperate socioeconomic and material circumstances which give people certain inclinations to radicalize. The New Deal deradicalized America to a great degree, and the introduction of neoliberalism radicalized it. Positive, constructive, systemic change on the scale of society is a solution to radicalism. Well, that certainly is an argument.
It is frustrating because I do think that I was holding back, frankly, from saying some things that I do believe, which is that I do think that some of the way that white people approach race, and some Black people, frankly, a lot of affluent Black people, is performative.
So this is kind of an absurd position to say to an anti-fascist activist. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's an absurd position. I am beyond furious at this disingenuous presentation, those glib clips, and frankly, a facetious, ill-informed, and damaging Trojan horse of an interview. I deeply regret doing it, not because I'm ashamed of what I said, but because it was premised on false comedy and lies. This is something that has happened to me, too. Like, when I think someone's a leftist, I go into the conversation expecting comedy and expecting good faith and expecting a generous interpretation of what I'm saying, right? And you have to understand that for a lot of these content creators online, they're desperate for drama because to them, drama is easily mindless clips. They're trying to catch you up. They're trying to get a snare for your feet. They're not trying to do organizing. They're not trying to do education. They're trying to throw roadblocks into your way so that they could score a cheap clip. And so, you know, my advice for people that are getting into online leftist content creation would be expect everyone else to be a bad faith actor and protect yourself. And then you'll do better. Don't leave yourself vulnerable to any other content creator. People were unironically calling Malia performative for not speaking about the Taliban takeover. Amazing. Why is all the left is doing right now these types of fights against each other when the biggest bill in modern history in the Senate that will help all races? I mean, I'm obviously talking about it. She's sounding like K-Hive libs who weaponize idpol and bad faith on Twitter more and more every day. I mean, that's the ironic thing. The program is called Bad Faith, yeah.
Do you ever feel like there's a tension between kind of the need to coalition build and a perception of a certain segment of society as kind of untouchable?
People talk about deprogramming, deradicalization every time I give a book talk. Like 4 or 5 of the questions are about like, can't we just kumbaya, deradicalize? And like, you have no idea what goes into deradicalization. Like genuinely, like deradicalization, this magical term that people use constantly, is a years-long process, requires, you know, people to be mentally ready to leave. It's like analogous to quitting smoking and hard, you know, and sometimes people might want to kill you for leaving. Most people don't want to. They enjoy it. They enjoy the cruelty. They enjoy the camaraderie. They feel community. They feel acceptance.
Exactly. That's why I am highly skeptical of the claims of debate bros to deradicalize. Because, by the way, most of the debate bro communities that claim that they're deradicalizing are full of people that love cruelty, love bad faith attacks, love personal invasions. They operate as fascists, as as exactly the type of people, but they claim, oh, a debate bro de-radicalized me, but I continue to do all the things that fascists do to our perceived enemies. I don't buy it.
Right? If you're willing to engage in a years-long emotional connection of extraordinary strength, to the point where I've heard of like people marrying their de-radicalizers or spending years having dinner with their de-radicalizers, only to like eventually maybe arrive at a sort of tenuous former status. If you're prepared to do that, fine, that's not scalable. What is scalable is saying like these sentiments are unacceptable. You cannot show up in my town. You cannot show up in my university. Many people want to kumbaya because for them, the prospect of like standing up and like punching a Proud Boy is uncomfortable, and they want to see themselves as more tolerant. And like, I mean, for me at least, I'm like, cool, your conception of yourself as tolerant and marketplace of ideas-y and willing to coalition build, whatever, like matters more to you than my safety and the safety of like all the marginalized people that these people attack. Like I really, if I sound angry, it's because I'm an angry person. I'm also quitting smoking and also Nazi.
I mean, there's no debate here. She's totally right, folks. I'm sorry. She's totally right. I think one of the things that's the most toxic about online culture right now is the belief that someone can go from being a literal Nazi, for example, helping crowdfund a ship to block aid toward refugees in the Mediterranean, trying to attack ships aiding refugees, and then, you know, a year or two later, when they haven't even denounced their ideas, yeah, let's have them on my debate panel. Let's build up their online presence. What? Are you nuts? Well, don't you want them to reform? You know, to be quite honest with you, I don't care if that individual scumbag reforms. You know what I care more about? Stopping their movement. And guess what? They ain't reforming. They ain't changing. And it's one of these things that I have, these conversations that I have a lot, is the overwhelming majority of the audience of these former radical content creators is people that are already on the left. It's not actually causing a big dent. In reality, what is changing? Why is the alt-right declining? Well, a couple of reasons. Donald Trump actually won, and he didn't do any of the things they said he was going to do. There was a massive disappointment because Donald Trump was just like every other Republican, just more openly racist. And if you were somebody who was disenfranchised and alienated and thought Donald Trump was going to recognize some sort of significant change for your life, he didn't. He helped the rich. This populism was false. He did the performative racism, but he didn't actually change the lives of poor people. So if you were a, quote, right-wing populist, Donald Trump didn't deliver for you, other than some racist policies on immigration that were not fully implemented. People haven't called themselves alt-right for years now. They became open white nationalists. True. If we can punch a Nazi, why can't we do worse to them? Because that's against the rules. And we don't do anything. We don't advocate for violence on Twitch.tv. We don't advocate for violence. I believe that Nazis should be deplatformed. I can't advocate for violence on Twitch, so I don't. You understand? It's a perfect circle. Twitch is against the TOS. It's against the TOS to advocate violence against anyone. Therefore, I do not do it. Do you understand that perfect circle of logic? It's an unassailable circle of logic. I can't do it, therefore I am not doing it. Okay, you see? If I'm on Twitch, then I'm not advocating for violence. Got it? Okay, good. When I think that they should be deplatformed. I think that they should lose their jobs. I believe they should lose their admission to college. Being a Nazi should be a totally unacceptable viewpoint in our society, period. The best faith reading of your question necessitates the question that triggered her. I never mentioned deprogramming until she brought it up. A weird complaint. The best faith reading of your question necessitates deprogramming. Here she assumed the untouchable group in your theoretical coalition would be former, that is, deprogrammed and deradicalized basis. She assumed you would not build a coalition with Nazis. If I were asking a question like that, I'd be very happy the other person assumed I thought deprogramming was necessary prior to this theoretical coalition. The alternative would indicate they thought very ill of me. So when we say coalition building, what do we mean? I'll give you so in case you guys don't understand, I'll give you an example of a group that we might want a coalition build with as the left, but contains problematic elements. The building trades. The building trades unions in America are some of the most powerful unions, but they also have large conservative strains within them, especially on social issues. Okay? Because the building trades unions, traditionally in the Northeast, are full of blue-collar white men, they have a lot of weirdo conservative social positions frequently within the rank and file. Okay? They love their guns. They love their trucks. Right? They're kind of suspicious of feminism. They're kind of suspicious of, other cultural signifiers of like a cosmopolitan view of the world, right? However, the building trade supports union organizing. The building trade supports high minimum wages. The building trade supports, all this economic leftism, right? And the leadership of this building trades is often very good on all those issues I just talked about. It's a problem within the rank and file, right? The building trades leadership, for the most part, supports the left, or supports at least Democrats, right, in politics. And they're constantly trying to expand union rights, right? So when we go in coalition with the building trades, we understand that there's a problem within the building trades internally with political education within the culture of the building trades. But overall, the building trades is good. That would be a coalition building moment because the building trades has really good people in it and really bad people in it, but it's still worth coalition building. Nazis, populist right, not worth coalition building with. Because they don't actually hold any left-wing views. It's bullshit. When you talk about the elites and the rich not caring about, or Wall Street not caring about the blue-collar worker, the everyday American, what they mean by Wall Street is Jewish person. They mean Jews. When you say Zionist and you mean the state of Israel is holding Palestinians as second-class citizens, when the alt-right says Zionist, they mean Jew. You cannot coalition build with that. There's no common ground. Just look, for example, at the Afghanistan withdrawal. So many people bought the idea that the alt-right, or the right, or not the alt-right, the populist right, was legitimately anti-war. But when Joe Biden pulls out of Afghanistan, suddenly all those populist right figures and politicians attack him for it. Suddenly, they love forever war. You can't coalition with them. You can't coalition with Tucker Carlson. You can't coalition with those people. Now, if someone legitimately de-radicalizes and moves on and improves as a person, of course they should be welcome. Of course we should work to accept that. But as a means of primary political motivation and organizing, that's absurd. There's no significant population of formerly radical right people in politics. You want to talk about an online-only phenomenon, it's the 16-year-old that used to watch alt-right YouTube videos who's now 19 who watches some debate bro on YouTube. That is the 100% online-only phenomenon and is making no impact in the world. Have you seen Adolf Reed article, The Whole Country is the Reichstag? Yeah, we actually read it. But the important to ask these questions, even if the answer is deradicalization is hard and years-long process, and we need to fight alt-right fascists in this way. Otherwise, libs will just keep asking that question without a leftist answer. Yeah, well, I mean, I think Talia's response was totally normal for being asked this dumbass question. And the other thing is, liberals hate disharmony more than fascism. This is Martin Luther King Jr. letter from the Birmingham jail comment. I need to read it again. Let me read this for you because this is written in 1963. I make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. This is Martin Luther King Jr. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with the goal you and the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes that they can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. And so when he says white citizens counselor, by the way, Chad, that is basically another group. That was an anti-desegregation movement. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace, in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight, to a substantive and positive peace, in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Actually, we who engage in this nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out and into the open, where it can be seen and dealt with, like a boil that can never be cured as long as it is covered up, but must be opened with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light. Injustice must be exposed with all the tension exposure creates to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion before it can be cured. We should never forget that everything that Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even so, I am sure that had I lived in Germany at the time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers. If today I lived in a communist country, blah, 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 where certain principles dear to the Christian faith are suppressed, I would openly advocate disobeying that country's anti-religious laws. That's the point. They really try to rewrite MLK as a moderate. It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. Why is this? What is legal isn't the same as what is ethical. The law and order movement was a clear indicator of that, of course. We were talking about not white supremacists on a whites-only dating site, not Nazis. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean about the whole, like, the whole Nazi things?
Oh, see, technically the Nazis ended in 1945, so we were just
Talking about people that are so racist they go to a whites-only dating site. You have to be a total freak to go to a white-only dating site. Like, that is so racist. It's unbelievable. Would the builders' unions not be the white moderates that MLK was talking about? Yeah, of course. Of course. But the point is that if those white moderates tell the more radical actors to sit down and shut up, they're wrong. Oh my God. Nazis killed 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. White supremacy is broader, and this country targets black people more specifically. Okay. Yeah. Oh boy. White supremacy in this country has always included Jewish people. In fact, white supremacy in the United States was very expansive. It included like Asian people, even Italians, Irish people were originally not considered part of the white majority, the so-called Anglo-Saxon majority, the Jewish people, and of course, black people were specifically targeted for total exclusion. But white supremacy in America and Nazism are inextricably linked. And in fact, Hitler took a lot of our racial laws and used them in Nazi Germany. Forgot that Nazis only killed Jews. In fact, the first group that the Nazis attacked was actually communists. The first group the Nazis targeted in death camps was communists. Then the socialists. That's why we have that prayer. First they came for the communists. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist because I did not speak out because I was not for a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I am not a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak out for me. The first group the Nazis came for were socialists and communists. All right, I'm done with the weird Briahna Joy Gray stuff. Just, my goodness. Be better than that, chat. Be better than that.